Welcome to another episode of Bench to Boardroom, where life sciences leaders come for signal, not noise, concise insights, sharp strategy, and actionable ideas shaping biotech, pharma, medtech, and healthcare. We're glad you're here. Let's begin with a simple observation. Every few years, our industry becomes convinced that this policy change, this economic event, or this regulatory reform will permanently redefine the future of biopharma. Tariffs, drug pricing reform, the Inflation Reduction Act, most favored nation proposals, European pharmaceutical legislation, manufacturing incentives, supply chain security. The headlines suggest disruption. Leadership meetings become dominated by uncertainty. Investment committees become cautious. Launch plans are rewritten. But here's the question I'd like to explore today. What if these events aren't exceptional at all? What if they're simply part of the natural policy cycle that has always characterized our industry? History suggests exactly that. And the organizations that consistently outperform are rarely those predicting every policy shift perfectly. They're the ones building businesses resilient enough to succeed regardless. Today I'd like to discuss why thinking holistically and historically has become one of the greatest competitive advantages in life sciences. Let's talk about the mistake of treating policy as a surprise. One of the most common strategic mistakes I see is treating macroeconomic and policy developments as isolated shocks. In reality, they rarely are. Healthcare is among the most politically visible sectors in every developed economy. Medicines affect public budgets. Innovation affects industrial policy. Manufacturing affects national resilience. Pricing affects elections. Therefore, policy intervention should never surprise us. It's built into the system. We've seen repeated cycles. Patent reform, pricing reform, generic competition, biosimilars, pandemics, supply shortages, economic recessions, healthcare budget constraints, industrial incentives. The specific issue changes. The underlying cycle does not. The companies that appreciate this tend to build much more resilient strategies. And in today's policy landscape, in the United States, manufacturers continue navigating several overlapping dynamics. Discussions around tariffs have reinforced concerns about pharmaceutical supply chains and domestic manufacturing resilience. The Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, has introduced Medicare drug pricing negotiations for select products, altering long-term commercial planning and life cycle management for many companies. Meanwhile, proposals related to most favored nation pricing and broader international reference pricing continue to shape discussions about launch sequencing, pricing strategy, and portfolio optimization. Whether every proposal ultimately survives in its original form is almost secondary. The important point is this. Policy uncertainty has become a permanent strategic variable. The question is no longer whether policy will change. The question is whether your business model will assume it will. And Europe is changing too. Across Europe, we see another important evolution. The ongoing reform of EU pharmaceutical legislation reflects multiple priorities simultaneously. Supporting innovation, improving equitable patient access, revisiting orphan medicines incentives, strengthening pharmaceutical supply security, encouraging European manufacturing capacity, increasing resilience following the vulnerabilities exposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. These objectives occasionally pull in different directions, encouraging innovation while improving affordability, rewarding investment while ensuring access, accelerating approvals while maintaining rigorous evidence standards. None of these tensions are new, though, but they're becoming more explicit. That means commercial strategy can no longer be separated from public policy. So what are the real-world consequences? We've already seen companies modify launch strategies because of changing reimbursement environments and pricing expectations. Some manufacturers have delayed launches in selected European markets. Others have withdrawn products where reimbursement conditions became commercially unsustainable. Still others have chosen not to commercialize certain innovative medicines in particular jurisdictions despite regulatory approval. These decisions are understandably controversial. Patients lose access. Health systems lose therapeutic options. Manufacturers lose revenue opportunities. But from a strategic perspective, they illustrate something larger. Launch planning is increasingly becoming an exercise in policy analysis as much as commercial planning. But history tells a different story. Now here's the encouraging part. None of this is unprecedented. The pharmaceutical industry has navigated decades of policy change, the emergence of managed care, patent cliffs, generic competition, biosimilars, global financial crises, healthcare austerity, pandemics, regulatory modernization. Each period generated predictions that innovation would permanently slow. Yet remarkable breakthroughs continued. Checkpoint inhibitors transformed oncology. CAR-T therapies changed hematologic malignancies. Gene therapies reached patients. RNA technologies advanced from scientific curiosity to global importance. Innovation persisted. Not because conditions became easier, but because organizations adapted. So, how do you build a resilient organization? Because that raises an important leadership question. How should organizations prepare? The answer isn't predicting every legislative outcome. It's designing resilience, resilient portfolios, diversified manufacturing footprints, balanced geographic exposure, multiple regulatory pathways, robust market access planning, strong evidence generation, and disciplined capital allocation. And above all, sustained investment in genuinely differentiated innovation. Because policy cycles tend to affect incremental products more severely than transformative ones. I say that again. Policy cycles tend to affect incremental products more severely than transformative ones. And true innovation retains negotiating power. Meaningful clinical benefit remains remarkably resilient. So, how do you achieve success despite those headwinds? Some of the industry's greatest successes emerged during periods of uncertainty. Companies launching breakthrough oncology therapies during reimbursement pressure still created enormous value. Manufacturers investing in advanced therapies despite skepticism fundamentally reshaped treatment paradigms. Organizations diversifying manufacturing ahead of broader geopolitical concerns found themselves strategically advantaged when supply chains tightened. None of those outcomes happened because the environment was favorable. They happened because leadership anticipated that uncertainty was normal. So what does leadership in a cyclical industry look like? Perhaps that's the broader lesson. Leadership isn't demonstrated when conditions are stable. It's demonstrated when uncertainty becomes routine. Great executives don't simply react to policy. They build organizations capable of thriving through policy cycles. That mindset changes almost every strategic decision. Portfolio design, manufacturing investment, commercial planning, capital allocation, launch sequencing, corporate development. Instead of asking, how do we respond? The better question becomes, how do we build a business that succeeds regardless? I'll offer this for a final thought. History is often described as a guide rather than a prediction. I think that's especially true in life sciences. The life sciences industry has always operated at the intersection of science, economics, public policy, and societal expectations. That intersection will continue evolving. It always has. The companies that create enduring value won't be those waiting for certainty. They'll be those studying patterns, recognizing cycles, learning from history, and adapting faster than consensus. Adapting faster than consensus. Because breakthroughs, whether scientific or strategic, rarely emerge from businesses as usual. They emerge from leaders willing to examine familiar challenges through a broader, more integrated lens. And perhaps that's the enduring lesson of the industry. The future is often built not by ignoring history, but by understanding it more completely. Thank you for joining us on Bench to Boardroom. Always selective, always original, always actionable. Until next time.